All right, so are you ready to dive deep into natural sweeteners?
I am. Let's do it.
Sweeteners are a hot topic these days, and we're going to explore all the different ones everyone's always asking about.
Oh, yeah.
Like we're talking stevia, monk fruit, honey, maple syrup, coconut sugar,
Really, the whole gamut.
the whole shebang.
Yeah.
So to get to the bottom of all of this, we've got a few chapters from The Ultimate Guide to Kicking Sugar,
Okay.
and then a whole bunch of research articles on each of these natural sweeteners.
Okay.
Because the real question is, are these sweeteners actually good for us?
Right.
Or are they just sugar in disguise?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so fascinating because we all tend to just kind of lump sweeteners together,
Right.
but they really do have such different impacts on our bodies.
Totally.
That's what we really want to uncover in this deep dive,
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
nuances.
Yeah, and I think a good place to start is with something we can all relate to,
Okay.
which is that craving for something sweet. Like, you know when you're stressed out and suddenly you just want to eat an entire, like, sheet cake?
Oh, tell me about it.
Or, you know when you're bored and it's like, gotta be chocolate?
Yeah,
There's a reason we do that, right? Like, there's a biological reason.
absolutely. Our brains are just wired to seek out sweetness.
Okay.
Think about it like way back to our ancestors.
Okay.
Hunter-gatherer days, sweetness usually meant you found a food that was calorie-dense,
Oh, interesting.
which was crucial for survival.
Okay.
And it's like Jessica Russo, she's a clinical psychologist. She says in the book, we're biologically driven towards sweet foods as a survival mechanism.
Right. It makes sense.
So it makes sense that we still have that instinct today.
So that's kind of like the primal drive, but what's actually happening in our brain when we actually indulge in that sweet treat?
Okay.
Is it like just psychological, or is there like a chemical reaction going on?
Honestly, it's both.
Okay.
So when you eat sugary stuff, your brain releases dopamine,
Okay.
which is the feel-good chemical. It's a neurochemical.
Yeah.
And it's basically a reward system that makes you want to repeat the behavior,
Oh,
which in this case is eating more sugar.
interesting.
And in fact, Kenneth Bloom, who is a really well-known neuropharmacologist, he says that sugar actually triggers a dopamine rush.
Oh, wow.
That's really similar to what you see with drugs or alcohol.
So are you saying that like my chocolate addiction is kind of like a real addiction?
Well, I don't want to say addiction exactly,
Okay.
but the way our brains respond to sugar
Yeah.
definitely has similarities to addictive patterns.
Okay.
And you know where it gets really crazy? They've actually done studies on mice.
Oh, really?
And when they give mice a choice between sugar and cocaine, guess what they pick?
Oh, gosh, I don't know.
Sugar.
Really? Even if they like had a cocaine addiction before?
Even if they were previously hooked on cocaine, they often go for the sugar.
That's kind of terrifying.
It is a little bit scary,
Yeah.
right? It shows you, even though it's not technically a drug, it really can hijack your brain's reward system in a similar way.
So it's not just me being weak.
No, not at all.
There's like an actual reason it's hard to resist.
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes me wonder though, is it just the sugar itself?
Right.
Or is it the massive quantities of refined sugar that we eat?
Yeah.
That's really the problem.
That's the real question. And it's kind of why we're exploring these natural sweeteners.
Right.
Because the question is, could they offer a way to satisfy that sweet tooth
Okay,
without all the negative consequences?
that makes sense.
So maybe let's start with stevia,
Okay.
which is like super popular right now.
Yeah, it is.
And it's interesting because unlike regular sugar, which we know spikes your blood sugar,
Right.
stevia is actually known to lower it.
Really?
It's pretty amazing.
Okay, now stevia sounds a little too good to be true.
I know, right?
Is it really that much different than regular sugar?
It really is. It comes from the stevia plant,
Okay.
and it's got these compounds called steviol glycosides.
Mhm.
And those are like hundreds of times sweeter than sugar.
Wow.
But here's the kicker. It basically has 0 calories,
Okay.
and it doesn't mess with your blood sugar.
So you're telling me I can have my cake and eat it too?
It kind of sounds that way, right?
I'm a little skeptical. Are there studies that back this up?
There are tons of studies.
Okay.
There was one at the University of Florida.
Okay.
They found that people who had stevia before a meal
Okay.
had way lower blood sugar and insulin levels afterwards
Okay.
compared to people who had like sucrose or aspartame.
Wow, that's impressive. Lower blood sugar and lower insulin.
Yeah.
That sounds like it could be huge for people with diabetes.
Yeah,
Or
absolutely.
anyone who's just watching their blood sugar.
Right, exactly.
Okay, but what about for like regular people
Yeah.
who are just trying to be healthier? Like, are there any other benefits to stevia?
For sure. That same study found that people who had stevia actually ended up eating fewer calories overall
Oh, wow.
without feeling hungrier.
It's interesting.
which is a pretty good win-win.
It is.
And there's also research suggesting it could be good for your blood pressure and your cholesterol.
Really?
And on top of all that, it's got over 100 beneficial compounds.
Okay, now you've got my attention, but hold on.
Okay.
Before I throw out all my sugar and just buy a lifetime supply of stevia, are there any downsides?
That's a good question.
Or safety concerns I should know about?
It's always smart to be careful with sweeteners,
Yeah.
even the natural ones.
True.
So the FDA, they've given purified stevioglycosides
Okay.
what they call GRS status,
Okay.
which means generally recognized as safe,
Got it.
but that's just for the purified stuff.
Okay.
The crude stevia extracts haven't gotten that same approval.
Interesting.
So when you're shopping for stevia, look for the ones with the purified stevioglycosides.
Okay, so purified stevia glycosides. Got it.
Yeah.
But what about the taste? I've heard stevia can be kind of bitter.
Yeah. Some people do find that certain stevia products have a little bit of a bitter or metallic aftertaste,
Yeah.
but the technology has gotten so much better.
Okay.
A lot of brands have managed to get rid of that.
Okay.
So you can find it in powder form, liquid, or even as whole leaf plants.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you could try growing your own.
That's pretty cool.
So don't be afraid to experiment, see what works best for you,
I love that.
you know?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to give it a try.
Awesome.
But speaking of sweeteners with unique flavors,
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about another one that's been getting a lot of attention lately.
Okay.
Monk fruit.
Oh, yeah.
So mysterious.
It is.
How does it compare to stevia?
Monk fruit's definitely having a moment, you're right.
It is.
It's been used in traditional Chinese medicine forever,
Really?
but it's really only become popular in the West kind of recently.
Okay.
And for good reason. Just like stevia, it's natural. It's from a plant,
Yeah.
and it's super potent, like 200 to 350 times sweeter than sugar.
Whoa, that's even sweeter than stevia.
It is.
So is it all about the sweetness, or does monk fruit have other things going for it?
It does. It's got these compounds called makrosides,
Okay.
which are basically calorie-free, and they don't raise your blood sugar.
Okay.
And on top of that, research is showing there's a ton of potential health benefits.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
What kind of benefits are we talking about?
Well, for one thing, it's similar to stevia in that it helps control your blood sugar.
Okay.
There was a study in the International Journal of Obesity.
Okay.
They found that monk fruit sweetener didn't raise blood sugar or insulin before a meal,
Okay.
unlike sucrose.
Interesting.
So it looks like it could be really helpful for managing blood sugar.
So it sounds like both stevia and monk fruit could be good for people with diabetes?
Yes.
Or people just watching their blood sugar?
Absolutely.
But I remember you mentioned something about monk fruit being good for viruses or even cancer,
I did.
which is crazy for a sweetener.
It is kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of excitement about those possibilities.
Okay.
And in traditional Chinese medicine, they've been using it for coughs, sore throats, respiratory stuff for a long time.
Right.
And now modern research is starting to back that up.